We're building a Panasonic 3DO from a box of spares. Last video we installed an SSD on a mount. We also changed the Japanese PSU for a 240 volts UK PSU. And it all worked. Except I remembered that I didn't have a controller. Well, not one that was working anyway. So we hatched a plan. We'd build this USB to 3DO adapter so we could plug in some USB controllers and use those instead. I'm going to try to use my PS4 controller. I'm looking forward to this. Let's do it right now. Mark fixes stuff. Let's go over to the soldering bench. This is a small board and fits easily in my PCB holder. Because I've been handling it a lot, I'm going to need to clean it off. For that I'm going to use some 99.9% pure IPA or isopropyl alcohol. IPA is really good for breaking down oils found in fingerprints and generally making it easier to solder the board afterwards. With the board clean we can look at the components. This project is powered by a Raspberry Pi 2040. These things are taking over the world. We'll need something to deal with different voltages, so we're going to use a level shifter. This is just a super cheap one that I picked up off of AliExpress. In fact, I think I bought about 30 for a couple of pounds. They work though. On the board we'll also need a capacitor. I've got a whole bag here for something I never got around to doing, or I lost them and reordered them, I don't know. They've been sitting around for a couple of years, but they tested okay for ESR, so let's use them. We'll also need a couple of DE9 ports, both the male and female varieties. I use quite a lot of these, so I keep them handy in my parts drawer. Now I know I called them DE9 and some people will be yelling DB9, but they're actually DE9s. I'm right. If you don't like it you can look it up, but it's true. Of course you're free to call them whatever you like. Let's fit our level shifter first. I'll put the soldering iron onto its usual 340 degrees Celsius. The USB to 3DO controller adapter lets modern USB controllers pretend to be original 3DO pads. It does this by translating USB inputs into the 3DO's serial controller protocol in real time. The DB9s will do the connectivity. The Raspberry Pi is the brain that does the thinking. But the level shifter does the shouting, and let me explain that. Older electronics would generally operate on around 5 volts. Modern electronics generally operate on 3.3 volts for their logic. So if we connect our Raspberry Pi 2040 and it's only outputting 3.3 volts, then it's a bit like it's whispering to the console, which is expecting a 5 volt signal. So this small board is quietly doing critical work. It's converting 3.3 volt logic from the Raspberry Pi 2040 to 5 volt logic used by the 3DO. It also, in the other direction, protects the microcontroller from electrical abuse, acting a bit like a voltage buffer to prevent things happening to our Raspberry Pi and corrupting it. I mean, that can still happen, but hopefully it will be less likely. These header pins are an absolute pain in the whatsit to solder. They really are. I had to go over them and rework them a couple of times, so please forgive the shonky soldering. I did go and fix any issues afterwards when I wasn't stuck looking through the camera. A quick bit of a snip, and then that's our level shifter installed. Great. Next we're going to install the brains of the unit, which is the Raspberry Pi 2040. And I actually realised I used the wrong header pins earlier, so I had to break some more out of the parts drawer. Come on, I never claimed to be clever. The RP2040 is the microcontroller at the centre of the board and the heart of this project. It's based on the Raspberry Pi 2040 chip and it handles the USB host duties so you can plug in modern controllers. Again, I'm having some difficulty with the header pins, so I decided to use some flux. But I'll be honest, my favourite flux didn't really help. One of the problems with header pins is they have a large thermal mass and they're not really the best quality. I then tried to use some of my go-to regular flux paste. I love it because it's so gloopy. I mean, look at the gloop on this. And yes, I'm using a brush, I find it the easiest way to apply this stuff. I have a flux brush. And that was slightly more helpful, but I did have to rework some of the pins again after filming. Once this project is programmed, it's going to run a custom firmware by FCare from his GitHub project. Let's snip these leads by magic. Boom! Okay, that's the two major things that have been soldered in. The project has a single electrolytic capacitor near the DB9. I've not looked at the schematic, but I'm imagining that it smooths the power supply and helps absorb any noise from the console, which in turn will prevent random behaviour and lockups. Ports next, and this is where I got a bit confused. And no, not confused about them being called DE9 ports. The 3DO side is labelled as male, and as far as I know at the end of the controller cable it's a female connector, so how can this be the 3DO side? I was so confused that I actually went and checked the GitHub, and yeah, the way that they should be is the way that they are, so I wonder if the female and male descriptions are swapped. As always though, I'm no expert, so if I'm wrong let me know in the comments section below. These aren't super expensive sockets, I buy them in bags of 20. They've never let me down, but they have arrived a little bit bent before. But at 9p a socket, who's complaining? And they always straighten out with a pair of dolphin nose pliers anyway. The nice thing about DE9 sockets is they usually grip the board. They have these nice retention lugs on the left and right sides of the socket. I do always solder these first though, so nothing slips out of the hole. Even with my large tip, this is quite a difficult hole to fill. We're installing both of the connectors here. Francois or FCare says that the daisy chain one is actually optional. By installing the daisy chain connector it means that we can plug in other USB adapters or original controllers and daisy chaining will work. Unfortunately USB hubs don't, so you'll have to have one adapter per USB controller, which is probably a bit much to be honest. And there, the board is finished. Now all we have to do is program it. Now, my videos wouldn't be possible without my lovely patrons who literally keep these lights on and the cameras rolling. But it also wouldn't be possible without sponsors like PCBWay, who kindly produced the PCB for us today. PCBWay offer all kinds of services, 3D printing, full turnkey assembly, and of course PCB production. If you're looking for any of those kinds of services, or you don't want to set up a lab at home, then PCBWay is my go-to choice for all of those options. Go along to PCBWay.com today and place an order. Holding the boot cell switch I connect to the computer. I decided to compile the firmware myself, just in case I wanted to add my own controllers into the firmware in future. The firmware is a few years old and wouldn't compile in the new dev environment, but after a minor tweak or two I got it to compile with some warnings that aren't actually important. And we get our UF2 file that we drag and drop onto our Raspberry Pi in File Explorer. I got a warning, but that's just because I compiled it on a virtual machine in Linux on a Windows box and copied it across. Once it was copied, the Raspberry Pi reboots. Just like that, I'd like to say that it worked. But it didn't fit into the console because the DE9 connectors have these threaded nuts that needed to be removed, and then the sheath was loose, so I stuck that back on with some rubber cement and left it for an hour so that it would dry. And just like that, I'd like to say it worked. And it did. It worked great with FCare's first generation firmware, version 1. But what I really wanted to do was, instead of using my PlayStation 4 controller, which has a micro USB connector, I wanted to use this controller over here. Can't remember which Xbox it's from, comments below. But it's really comfortable and it's got a USB-C, so it would be USB-C to USB-C. However, this controller is not supported. So I thought I would add the HID, the hardware interface descriptor, which is the reason I went through all the hassle of compiling the firmware myself. But whilst I was looking to see if anybody had already done this on the web, I discovered a familiar name. That's right, it's Robert Dale Smith, who's involved in this project here, which has actually brought a new firmware to the same kind of hardware platform. And, well, it's much more advanced and supports this. One thing I like about the new firmware is that it gives you a red LED that pulses. A pulsing LED means that it's not actually connected to the controller. You have to press the button, then it syncs, and your controller, well, it just works. And the mapping of the bottom 3 buttons are in the same order as they are on the 3DO controller, so it feels really natural playing games like Bust a Move, which, by the way, I really love. How can you not love Bust a Move? I mean, I never said I was any good at Bust a Move. Bust a Move was one of the games I played back in the 90s on this console, and it really brought back some memories for me, as does Dragon's Lair. And if you notice, with the 240p switch on, it runs twice as fast, so I can be twice as crap in half of the time. Efficient. I'd considered wiring the eject button on the console up to the disk change button on the ODE, but the ODE already takes care of that. It intercepts and interprets the signal on the disk drive cable automatically. Brilliant. And brilliant is what we thought Demolition Man was back in 1993, 1994. Anyway, it was mind-blowing back then. And you know what? It still is a little bit now. To catch a maniac, you have to send a maniac. Crikey. I cannot begin to tell you how bad I am at this game after all this time. Obviously, the first few levels are an Operation Wolf knockoff, and then there's some driving stuff that I vaguely remember, but I couldn't even get nearly that far. That being said, I am a fan of digital violence, so being able to commit digital violence made me feel really good. That good feeling did not last long, however. On another trip down memory lane, I revisited a game called D, which I have really fond memories of. It's basically a survival horror, but it's so slow. I mean, like, painfully slow. I'm wondering if there's something wrong with it. Anyway, it might be slow, but it's still a better game than Lemmings. Joking aside, I loaded up Lemmings to try and test my mouse, but none of my mice seem to be supported by the USB to 3DO. So if anybody knows a mouse that does work, please let me know. I finished up my gaming session with Gex, one of my favourite games, and I don't just mean on the 3DO. Platformer wise, it has everything I want. Humour, Easter eggs, cultural references, and it's fair. It's a fair game. It also looks amazing. This is one game where that 240p progressive switch really does come into its own. Well, I've got a lot more gaming to do, so I think I'll just say massive thanks to my amazing patrons appearing on the screen right now. Patrons get ad-free early access to all my videos, and they also get access to my behind the scenes vlogs. Patrons also get the ability to walk like a duck, talk like a duck, and quack like a duck. That might be a lie. Oh wow, that was sort of bordering on ASMR, or is it AMSR? One of those. Anyway, I don't want to become that kind of channel, so please come along to patreon.com/MarkFixesStuff to support me in making retro projects so I don't have to become an AMSR artist. Or is it ASMR? Anyway, if I can't say it, I can't do it. Thank you so much for watching the video. I've actually had a really good time with this series, so let's do this again soon. Thanks for staying to end. I shall reward you with a fake regional accent. Please watch one of these other videos. Oh, they're really good.